You cannot afford being nice to a man. You will become an easy target for manipulation, abuse, getting walked all over, cheated on. It's not worth it.
So I totally agree with this creator in that can't always be nice to a man. And if you listen to, Shira Seven, Miss Sprinkle Sprinkle, she talks about that a lot, in a sense that, be nice and good to yourself. But since this is a page about vibrations and we're talking about energy, and if we're talking about energy and we're talking about astrology, we're going to talk about a little bit of myth and a little bit of psychology. So this type of woman in Jungian psychology will be considered the anima woman. She pretty much conforms or accepts, kind of men's projection onto herself. In myth, this would be Persephone. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the psychological aspect of this type of woman and also how it is useful in our psyche. So according to Hester Harding, which is a Jungian psychologist, the anima woman received the projection of a man's unconscious image of a woman, and she unconsciously conforms to that image. So this type of woman pretty much is, you want to say, all things to all men. So whatever her man wants, she pretty much tries to be. She adapts herself to his needs, his wishes, and this, to her will make herself beautiful in his eyes. And this is a way to kind of charm this type of man that projects his unconscious onto this woman that she accepts his unconscious projection. And in myth, this would be Persephone. And a Persephone woman is innate. She has innate receptibility that makes her malleable. So this is even towards, not just men, but towards women. So I'm going to read from a little passage here. If significant people project an image or expectation onto her, she initially does not resist. It is her pattern to be chameleon-like, to try on whatever others expect of her. Is the quality that predisposes her to an anima woman, because she unconsciously conforms to what a man wants her to be. With one man, she's a tennis buff who fits into a country club set. The next relationship, she's on the back of his motorcycle as they roar down the highway, etc., etc. So this is kind of like the Persephone archetype, who's very malleable. So according to the myth, Persephone was abducted and taken into the underworld. And if you know, the underworld is pretty much our unconscious, the other part of our psyche. We have the conscious part and we have the unconscious part. And so, when you get abducted into the underworld, it's kind of like, it's considered a rape. I think like a lot of the stuff that we talk about or women talk about here on TikTok about, how they've been mistreated by men. And that is kind of like the Persephone myth, like being abducted into the underworld, like you were emotionally, I don't want to say raped, but, taken advantage of, and taken to another part of your psyche, like another part of your psyche wakes up, and which is the unconscious part of yourself. You realize that, well, this is not really who I am, or this is not really what I want from my life. So this is a part of the Persephone myth about abduction. It's kind of like it's almost like, how do you say, what is that, when someone treats you bad, I want to say the word, I don't want to use violated, but there's another word for it, but violated, I'm going to use that. When you're violated emotionally, you kind of like, take a step back and to look at, you kind of go into another part of your psyche which you're not aware of. So this is pretty much the Persephone myth. So there's different parts of our psyche, right? And of course, Persephone becomes the queen of the underworld, which means that once you cultivate, the aspects of yourself, like, your unconscious aspect, and you can move from your ego to the unconscious, which the ego is kind of like the conscious aspect or the mediator between consciousness and unconscious. Persephone becomes the queen of that, which, like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a part of your psyche. Like the Persephone, you have to think about it as, how can I say, like, it is a part of your psyche, but do you sometimes hear, like, your voice, like, some people have voices in their heads, which is loud, but sometimes some people don't have voices in their heads, from what I understand. But if you think about, like, sometimes when you're thinking about things, or, it's like you have these different aspects of yourself that's talking. And so Persephone, you have especially goddesses. You have Athena, you have Artemis, which is kind of like one of the goddesses I relate to more. So if you see that you're like a person that likes to give and give and give, or you kind of like move with the currents and you can't say no to people, then like you're probably more of a Persephone type archetype. Like that's what's going on up here. If you're like an Athena type of person, then you're more strategic. If you're Artemis type of person, then you're more competitive. So if you're like a Persephone type, then maybe you want to focus on cultivating other types of goddesses or archetypes. So Athena is one of them, which is one of them that you want to develop if you're a Persephone type, which is to be more strategic, and Artemis maybe to be more competitive, to kind of develop yourself more. And of course you have other archetypes. You have Demeter, you have Hestia, you have Aphrodite. So those, it all depends. I'm going to try to go over a lot of them, especially like Shira. I wanted to kind of do a little dive on her and talk about the archetype that I think that she is, or the goddess that she cultivates a lot when she's online. But anyways, I'm going to try to wrap this up. Let's see. So, and also just to touch a little bit, like someone who's kind of like this probably had a, dominating mother. So that's something to potentially look at. But if you are a Persephone type or a Animus woman type, just know that there is kind of like a deep, because also if you think about it, Persephone is also connected to Scorpio, which is the sign of transformation. So when you think about Persephone, she's like these many things, but these many things, you could utilize it for self-transformation. So that's, there's a lot of things that go into the Persephone myth, and hopefully one day I'll speak about it at length. But yeah, that's it. Just more or less, cultivate yourself, be good to yourself. Ciao. Oh, and make sure you like and follow for more. Ciao.